The day the Council learned Earth had been holding back all along. Part 1. The Quiet Observers. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with noise. Representatives from 47 different species talked, argued, and shouted at each other. Their voices echoed off the curved walls that rose high above them like the inside of a giant shell. Ambassador Yoon Daeho sat quietly in his chair. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He had served as Earth's senior ambassador for 15 years, and in all that time, he had learned one important skill. He had learned to wait. Beside him sat Kim Soo-bin, his junior attach. She was young, only 32 years old, but she was sharp and quick. She watched the other delegates with careful eyes, noting who spoke to whom and who stayed silent. "They are fighting about trade routes again," Soo-bin whispered to the ambassador. Yoon nodded slowly. "They always fight about trade routes. It is easier than solving real problems." At the center of the Great Hall stood the speaking platform. Right now, Councilor Vareth held the floor. He was tall and thin, with a hard shell covering his body like armor. His species, the Kelthari, had been part of the Council for 3,000 years. They believed this gave them the right to look down on everyone else. "The shipping lanes through the Outer Rim must be protected," Vareth said, his voice clicking and sharp. "The Kelthari Dominion demands more patrol vessels in that sector." From across the hall, another voice answered. "The Kelthari always demand. They never give." This came from a heavy, scaled creature named High Speaker Morth. He was the elder of the council, a member of the ancient Sithrani species. His people had been traveling between stars when most other species were still living in caves. Yoon watched the argument with patient eyes. He had seen this same fight happen many times before. The Kelthari wanted more. The Sithrani said no. Other species picked sides. Nothing changed. This was how the galaxy worked. It had worked this way for 10,000 years. Soo-bin leaned closer to Yoon. "Do you think they even remember we are here?" The ambassador smiled softly. "That is exactly how I prefer it." Earth had joined the Galactic Council 47 years ago. In that time, humanity had been given a simple role. Humans were good workers. They could survive on harsh planets where other species would die. They were useful for building colonies in dangerous places. But no one thought of them as important. The Council believed humans had basic technology. Simple ships, weak weapons. Nothing special. And Earth had never corrected them. The argument on the floor continued for another hour. Yoon sat through all of it without speaking a single word. Some of the other delegates glanced at the human section with confusion. Why did they never talk? Why did they never demand anything? Councilor Vareth noticed this too. During a break in the debate, he walked over to where the humans sat. His hard feet clicked against the stone floor. "Ambassador Yoon," Vareth said. His voice was cold. "I noticed that Earth has offered nothing to this discussion. As usual." Yoon stood and gave a polite bow. "The matters being discussed do not concern Earth directly, Counselor. We are happy to listen and learn." Vareth made a sound like grinding rocks. It was the Kelthari way of laughing. "Listen and learn. Yes, that is all your kind ever does. You came to the stars with nothing, and 47 years later, you still have nothing." Soo-bin's hands tightened into fists under the table. But she said nothing. She had been trained well. "We are grateful for our place in the council," Yoon said calmly. "Earth asks for nothing more." Vareth leaned closer. His compound eyes reflected Yoon's face 100 times. "That is because you have nothing to offer. The quiet ones who brought nothing to the stars. That is what the other species call you. Did you know that?" "I did not," Yoon said. His expression did not change. "Thank you for telling me." Vareth stared at him for a long moment, trying to find some reaction. But Yoon's face remained peaceful, like a still pond. Finally, the Kelthari counselor turned and walked away. Subin let out a breath she had been holding. How do you stay so calm when he speaks to you like that? Yoon sat back down slowly. Because I know something he does not. Before Subin could ask what he meant, every light in the great hall turned red. A loud alarm filled the air. Every delegate stopped talking and looked up. High Speaker Morath hurried to the main console at the center of the room. His old claws moved quickly over the controls. A holographic display appeared above him, showing a map of the galaxy. 3 star systems on the edge of the map were flashing. As everyone watched, they went dark. What is happening? Someone shouted. Morath's voice was heavy with shock. The frontier systems. Karath Prime, Volus Station, the Dren Colony. He paused. They are gone, all of them, destroyed. The hall erupted in chaos. Delegates screamed questions. Some tried to contact their home worlds. Others simply stared at the map in horror. Destroyed by what? Varath demanded. Morath touched more controls. The holographic image changed. It now showed a recording from a destroyed station's final moments. Ships appeared on the screen. But they were not like any ships the Council had seen before. They were black and angular, covered with sharp edges. They moved without any visible engines. And they destroyed everything they touched with beams of pure white light. We received this message before the signal ended, Morris said. He played an audio recording. A terrified voice spoke in a language the translation systems could barely understand. They call themselves the Vorn Collective. They do not negotiate. They do not stop. They only destroy. The hall fell silent. 3 star systems. Billions of lives. Gone in a single day. Subin looked at Ambassador Yoon. For the first time, she expected to see fear on his face, but he was not afraid. He was thinking. Sir, she whispered, what do we do? Yoon did not answer immediately. He watched the holographic image of the Vorn ships. He studied their weapons, their movements, their formation. Then he spoke, very quietly. We wait. We watch. And when the time comes, we do what we have always been prepared to do. Before Subin could ask what that meant, another alarm sounded. Morath checked his console, and his scaled face went pale. The Vorn fleet, he announced. It has changed course. It is heading directly for the Council homeworld. It will arrive in 6 days. Panic filled the Great Hall. Delegates ran in every direction. Guards rushed in to protect their leaders. The whole galaxy seemed to be falling apart, but Ambassador Yoon remained in his seat. He folded his hands calmly in his lap, and he waited. The quiet ones who brought nothing to the stars. That was what they called humanity. They had no idea how wrong they were. The day the Council learned Earth had been holding back all along Part 3. The arrival of the Kelthari border system was the last line of defense. Beyond it lay the path to the Council homeworld. Beyond it lay everything that mattered. Commander Drex stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Kelthari vessel Unyielding Claw. He was old for his species, his shell scarred from dozens of battles. He had fought pirates, rebels, and rival empires. He had never lost, but looking at his tactical display, he knew this battle would be different. 200 Vorn warships hung in space like black thorns. They did not move. They did not communicate. They simply waited as if they knew victory was already certain. Behind Drex, the Allied fleet gathered. 87 ships from 12 different species. It was the largest combined force in Council history. It was also less than half of what the Vorn had. Any word from the human reinforcements? Drex asked his communications officer. The officer checked his display. They say they will arrive within the hour, Commander. Drex made a clicking sound of frustration. The humans, what could they possibly bring that would matter? 3 ships? 5? Even if every claim about hidden technology was true, how much difference could one small species make? Prepare the fleet for battle, Drex ordered. We cannot wait for stragglers. The Allied ships formed into attack groups, weapons charged, shields activated. Every crew member knew they were probably going to die. On the medical frigate behind the main line, Captain Beek Junseo watched the formation take shape. He was a tall man with a calm face and quick hands. He had served in Earth's hidden fleet for 20 years, waiting for a day like this. How long until we arrive? He asked. His navigator checked the instruments. 7 minutes, Captain. Lieutenant Hayuna, the weapons officer, stood at her station. Her fingers moved over the controls, running final checks on systems that no alien had ever seen. All weapons ready, she reported. Targeting systems online. Barrier projectors at full power. Beek nodded. Remember our orders. Protect the Allied fleet. Stop the Vorn, and try not to show off too much. Ayuna smiled slightly. I will try, Captain, but it might be difficult. In the Kelthari border system, the battle began. Commander Drex ordered the first attack wave forward. 30 ships rushed toward the Vorn line, weapons firing. The Vorn responded instantly. White beams cut through space, slicing through shields and armor like they were made of paper. In seconds, 15 Allied ships were destroyed. Fall back, Drex shouted. Reform the line. But the Vorn did not let them retreat. The black ships moved forward, faster than anything that Psi should move. More beams fired. More ships died. On the bridge of the unyielding claw, alarms screamed. A Vorn vessel had locked onto them. There was no time to dodge. No time to run. Drex closed his eyes and waited for death. The white beam fired, and something blocked it. Drex opened his eyes. A ship had appeared between him and the Vorn, but it was not like any ship he had ever seen. It was long and sleek, colored deep black with silver lines running across its hull. A shimmering field surrounded it, and the Vorn beam splashed against this field like water against stone. What is that? His tactical officer gasped. More ships appeared. They emerged from nothing, as if they had simply folded space around themselves and stepped through. One moment there were 87 Allied vessels. The next moment there were 127. 40 human ships had arrived. A communication channel opened. A calm voice spoke in perfect Kelthari language. This is Captain Beek Junseo of the Earthship Resolve. Allied fleet, please move to safe distance. We will handle the rest. Drex stared at his display in disbelief. Handle the rest? There are 200 Vorn ships. Yes, Beek replied. We know. The human ships moved forward. They did not rush. They did not scatter. They moved in perfect formation, like predators who knew their prey had no chance. Lieutenant Hayuna activated the primary weapons. Along the hull of every human ship, panels opened to reveal systems that glowed with contained light. Firing solution confirmed, Hayuna announced. Engaging. Lines of blue fire erupted from the human fleet. They were not like normal weapons. They did not fly through space in straight lines. They curved. They tracked. They found their targets with impossible precision. The first Vorn ship was hit by 7 beams at once. For a moment, its black hull glowed white. Then it exploded into a cloud of dust and light. Then another Vorn ship exploded, and another, and another. On the bridge of the unyielding claw, every officer stood frozen. They watched the tactical display as red dots vanished one after another. Their weapons. The tactical officer whispered. They cut through Vorn armor like it is nothing. How is this possible? Drex could not answer. He could only watch. The human ships spread out, surrounding the Vorn fleet. They fired constantly, their weapons never missing, never stopping. The Vorn tried to fight back. Their white beams struck human shields and did nothing. Their formation broke as ships tried to escape. None escaped. On the Resolve, Captain Beak watched the battle calmly. Everything was going according to plan. The Vorn were advanced compared to the Council species, but they were still machines following programs. They could not adapt fast enough. Enemy fleet reduced to 50%, Hyuna reported. Continue firing, Beak ordered. Leave nothing behind. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, 200 Vorn warships had been reduced to scattered debris. The human fleet had not lost a single vessel. Commander Drax sat in his command chair, unable to move. His communications officer had tears running down his face. His tactical officer kept checking the sensors, as if expecting the display to reveal some trick. "Commander," the officer said, his voice shaking, "the human ships. I have finished analyzing their technology." "What did you find?" The officer swallowed hard. "Their engines, their weapons, their shields, everything." He paused. "They are at least 300 years ahead of us, maybe more. 300 years. The Kelthari had been spacefaring for 3,000 years. They had believed themselves to be among the most advanced species in the galaxy. And the humans, quiet ones who had joined the Council less than 50 years ago, were 3 centuries beyond them. Captain Beak's voice came through the communication channel again. "Commander Drax, the Vorn threat in this sector has been eliminated. We will remain on station to assist with recovery operations. Please inform the Council that Earth stands ready to defend the galaxy." Drax tried to respond, but no words came. He simply nodded, knowing the human could not see him. The quiet ones who brought nothing to the stars. Everyone had believed it. Everyone had been certain, and everyone had been completely, utterly wrong. The day the Council learned Earth had been holding back all along Part 2, the request that changed everything. 2 days had passed since the Vorn Collective first appeared. 2 days of fear. 2 days of death. 3 more star systems had gone dark. The Galactic Council had called an emergency session. Every delegate was required to attend. The Great Hall, which usually echoed with arguments about trade and borders, was now filled with a different sound. Fear. High Speaker Morath stood at the center platform. He looked older than he had 2 days ago. The weight of leadership pressed down on his scaled shoulders. "The combined fleet of the Kelthari and Sethrani engaged the Vorn 3 hours ago," he announced. 200 of our best warships against 40 of theirs." The hall was silent. Everyone waited. "We lost 173 ships," Morath continued. His voice cracked. "The Vorn lost none." Gasps filled the room. Delegates grabbed their seats for support. Some covered their faces with their hands or claws or tentacles. Councilor Vareth pushed his way to the front. His shell was dirty and cracked. He had been at the battle himself and barely escaped. "Our weapons do nothing," he shouted. "We hit their ships again and again, but they do not break. They do not burn. They just keep coming. What are they?" Someone called from the crowd. "Machines," Vareth answered. "They are machines. No crew, no pilots. Just cold metal that wants to kill everything alive." Ambassador Yoon listened from his usual seat in the back. Su Bin sat beside him, her hands shaking slightly. She had never seen the Council like this. She had never seen entire species afraid. "We must call for help from all member worlds," Morath declared. "Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. This is not a war between empires anymore. This is a war for survival." The delegates voted quickly. For the first time in Council history, the vote was unanimous. Every species agreed to send everything they had. A young Sethrani aide named Lyra moved through the crowd, delivering messages and recording votes. She was small for her kind, with bright golden scales and curious eyes. As she passed the human section, she paused. She had always been fascinated by humans. They were so strange, so quiet. They never fought for power or demanded respect. They just sat and watched and waited. But now, looking at Ambassador Yoon, she noticed something odd. He did not look afraid. Everyone else in the hall was terrified. The ambassador looked patient. Lyra wanted to ask him about it, but she had work to do. She hurried away. Hours passed. Reports came in from across the galaxy. Ships were being gathered. Armies were being assembled. But everyone knew it would not be enough. The Vorn had technology that was centuries ahead of anything the Council possessed. As the session continued, Morath began calling on each species to pledge their forces. The Kelthari promised 50 ships. The Zithrani offered 40. Smaller species gave what they could. Sometimes just 1 or 2 vessels. Finally, Morath turned to the human delegation. It was almost an afterthought. Everyone knew humans had nothing worth offering. Earth, Morath said. What forces can you contribute? Ambassador Yoon stood slowly. Every eye in the hall turned to him. Most expected him to apologize and explain that Earth had nothing to give. That was what always happened. But Yoon did not apologize. "I, Speaker," he said, his voice clear and calm. "Earth is prepared to assist the Council. However, we require something first." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The humans were asking for something? That had never happened before. Vareth let out his grinding laugh. The quiet ones finally speak, and they make demands? What could Earth possibly want that matters right now? Yoon ignored the insult. Earth requires unanimous authorization from the Council to deploy our actual defensive capabilities. The hall went silent. Your actual capabilities? Morath asked. What does that mean? Before Yoon could answer, the holographic display above the center platform flickered. A new image appeared. It showed a human woman with short black hair and steady eyes. She wore a uniform that no one in the Council recognized. This is Coordinator Park Ji-yeon, Yoon explained. She leads Earth's defense initiative. Coordinator Park bowed slightly to the assembly. When she spoke, her voice was serious but not afraid. Distinguished members of the Council, she said. 47 years ago, when Earth first joined the galactic community, we made a choice. We chose to keep certain technologies hidden. We call this Protocol 7. More murmurs. More confusion. Hidden? Vareth demanded. What do you mean hidden? Earth has nothing worth hiding. Park's expression did not change. With respect, Counselor, Earth has many things worth hiding. We have simply chosen not to reveal them until now. She touched the control, and new images appeared. Ships, weapons, technologies that made even the oldest Council members gasp. These are not real, someone shouted. These are fantasies. They are real, Park said calmly. Every image you see represents technology that Earth has developed and kept secret for decades. We did not share these advances because we were not certain the galaxy was ready for them. Lyra had stopped working. She stood frozen, staring at the holographic images. She saw ships that seemed to bend space around them, weapons that glowed with contained starlight, shields that shimmered like liquid metal. This was impossible. The humans were supposed to be the weakest species in the Council. Everyone knew that. Everyone believed it. Had everyone been wrong? We need the Council's authorization to lift Protocol 7, Park continued. This requires a unanimous vote. If granted, Earth will deploy its full defensive force against the Vorn. The hall erupted. Delegates shouted questions. Some demanded proof. Others accused the humans of lying, but Morath raised his hand for silence. His old eyes studied the human ambassador carefully. If this is true, Morath said slowly, why did you hide it? Why let us believe you were weak? Yoon answered, because power without wisdom is dangerous. We watched the galaxy fight endless wars over small things. We saw great species destroy each other for pride and territory. We decided that sharing our technology too soon would only make things worse. And now? Morath asked. Now the galaxy faces extinction. Now there is no more time to wait. Now we must fight together or die alone. The vote happened quickly. What choice did they have? The Vorn were coming. Everything else they had tried had failed. One by one, every species voted yes. Even Vareth, though his compound eyes burned with anger and suspicion. When the final vote was counted, Ambassador Yoon turned to Subin. His face was calm, but she could see something new in his eyes. Relief. Send the signal, he said quietly. Tell them we are allowed to stop pretending. Subin's hands trembled as she opened a secure channel to Earth. She typed a simple message. Protocol 7 lifted. Authorization confirmed. Across the hall, Lyra watched the human delegates. She had expected them to celebrate, to look triumphant. But they did not. They looked like people who had been carrying a heavy weight for a very long time, and they had finally been allowed to put it down. 3 days later, everything would change. The galaxy would learn that the quiet ones had never been weak. They had just been waiting. The day the Council learned Earth had been holding back all along Part 4. The revelation 1 week after the battle, the Galactic Council summoned Earth's delegation. This time, the humans did not sit in the back. They were called to the center platform, where every eye could see them. Ambassador Yoon Dae-ho walked to the speaking position with the same calm steps he had used for 15 years. Subin followed close behind, carrying a small device in her hands. The hall was silent, filled with delegates who had spent the past 7 days asking the same question. Who were the humans, really? High Speaker Morath stood at the edge of the platform. His old eyes studied Yoon with a mixture of respect and suspicion. Ambassador Yoon, Morath began, the Council has called you here to explain. You have revealed that Earth possesses technology far beyond anything we imagined. You have hidden this power for 47 years. We have a right to understand why. You nodded. You do, and I will explain everything. He turned to face the full assembly. Hundreds of delegates from dozens of species watched him. Some were grateful. Earth had saved them from the Vorn. Others were afraid. What else might the humans be hiding? Councilor Vareth stood near the front, his compound eyes fixed on Yoon with cold anger. His pride had been wounded deeply. He had spent years mocking the humans, calling them weak and useless. Now he looked like a fool. Speak then, Vareth said, his voice sharp. Tell us why you lied to us for so long. Yoon did not react to the accusation. He simply began to speak. 300 years ago, humanity almost destroyed itself. We had developed weapons powerful enough to burn our entire planet. Nations pointed these weapons at each other. Children grew up expecting the world to end. He paused, letting the words settle. We did not destroy ourselves, but we came close. Many times. And when we finally stopped fighting, we looked at what we had become. We saw a species that had gained great power before it had gained wisdom. The hall remained silent. Even Vareth did not interrupt. We promised ourselves that we would be different. We would develop our technology, but we would also develop our understanding. We would grow stronger, but we would also grow kinder. We called this the Great Promise. Subin touched her device. A holographic display appeared above the platform, showing images of Earth's history, war, destruction. Then slowly, gradually, peace. When we discovered faster than light travel, we explored the galaxy in secret. We found other species. We watched them, and we saw something that worried us. The display changed to show Council history. Wars between empires. Planets destroyed. Entire species wiped out. The galaxy was like old Earth, full of powerful species that had not yet learned wisdom. If we revealed our technology, what would happen? Would they use it to help each other? Or would they use it to destroy each other faster? Morith leaned forward. So you decided to hide. We decided to wait, Yoon corrected. We joined the council as a minor species. We watched. We listened. We hoped that the galaxy would grow wiser on its own. And if it did not, we wanted to be ready. Ready for what? A delegate called out. Ready for a moment like this. A moment when the galaxy needed protection, not from each other, but from something worse. The display showed the Vorn fleet. Black ships cutting through space. Systems burning. The Vorn were our test, Yoon continued. If we revealed ourselves to conquer, we would become what we feared. But revealing ourselves to protect? That was different. That was the purpose we had been preparing for. Vareth stepped forward. His voice was angry, but beneath the anger was something else. Fear. You speak of protection, but you have weapons that could destroy worlds. You have ships that can appear anywhere without warning. What stops you from becoming conquerors yourselves? Yoon met the Kelthari's gaze without flinching. Only our choice. That is all that ever stops anyone. He gestured to Subin. More images appeared. Ships that could cross galaxies in days. Medical technology that could heal almost any injury. Machines that could create anything from raw matter. Earth is all of this, Yoon said. We could have dominated the galaxy decades ago. No one could have stopped us. But we chose not to. Why? Morith asked. The old Sethrani sounded genuinely curious, not suspicious. Yoon's expression softened slightly. Because we remembered what power without purpose did to us. We burned our world. We killed millions of our own people. We do not want to spread that pain. We want to help others avoid it. The hall fell quiet again. Delegates looked at each other, processing what they had heard. The humans had been lying for half a century. But they had been lying to protect the galaxy. Not to harm it thought it was a strange kind of deception. A gentle one. Lara, the young Sethrani aide, had been standing near the edge of the crowd. She raised her hand nervously. Ambassador, she said, her golden scales bright under the lights. If what you say is true, why tell us now? Why not continue hiding? Yoon smiled slightly. It was a sad smile, full of weight. Because hiding is not the same as helping. We could have protected you from the shadows forever. But you would never grow. You would never become partners instead of charges. He spread his hands. The galaxy deserves to know the truth. What you do with that truth is your choice. Morith moved to the center of the platform. He stood beside Yoon, facing the assembly. The council has many questions, the High Speaker said. This will not be resolved today. But I have one question that cannot wait. He turned to Yoon. What else are you hiding? The hall held its breath. Yoon paused. For the first time, he seemed to choose his words very carefully. Enough to end this galaxy, he said quietly. Or save it. The choice was never ours to make alone. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some delegates looked terrified. Others looked awed. We did not share everything today, Yoon continued. Some technologies are too dangerous. Some weapons should never be used. We will keep those secrets until the galaxy proves it is ready for them. And who decides when we are ready? Vareth demanded. You? Yoon shook his head. No, we decide together. All of us. That is what partnership means. He looked around the hall, meeting as many eyes as he could. We are not your rulers. We are not your masters. We are what we have always been. One species among many, trying to find our place in the universe. The only difference is that now you know what we can do. He paused. What matters now is what we choose to do together. The session ended without a formal vote. There was too much to discuss, too much to understand. Delegates gathered in small groups, talking in low voices about what they had heard. As Yoon left the platform, Lyra caught up with him. "Ambassador," she said, "I believe you, but I do not think everyone does." Yoon nodded. "I know. Trust takes time. We have waited 47 years. We can wait a little longer." He walked toward the exit, Subin at his side. Behind them, the galaxy was changing. The Quiet Ones had finally spoken, and nothing would ever be the same. The day the Council learned Earth had been holding back all along. Part 5. The new dawn. 6 months had passed since the truth about Earth became known. The galaxy was still adjusting. Some days it felt like progress. Other days it felt like chaos. Dr. Choi Hana stood in her office on the orbital station above Earth. She was the leader of the Technology Sharing Initiative, the program designed to gradually share human advances with the Council species. It was difficult work. Dangerous, even. But someone had to do it. The Kelthari delegation is requesting faster-than-light communication systems again, her assistant reported. Hannah shook her head. "Tell them we are still preparing the ethical framework. They need to understand the responsibility before they receive the technology. They will not be happy. They rarely are." This was the challenge Earth faced. Everyone wanted human technology immediately. They wanted weapons that could destroy fleets. They wanted medicine that could cure any disease. They wanted power, but power without understanding was dangerous. Hana had seen what happened when species rushed forward too quickly. She had studied the Vorn, learned that they had once been living beings who merged with machines to survive. They had become something cold and empty, destroying others because they had forgotten what it meant to be alive. Earth would not let that happen to the galaxy. Across the station, a shuttle docked. Its passenger was someone Hannah had been expecting. Councilor Lyra, formerly a junior aide, now one of the youngest members of the Council's ruling body. Lyra had changed in 6 months. She walked with more confidence. Her golden scales seemed brighter, but her eyes still held that same curiosity she had shown when she first noticed the human delegates in the Great Hall. "Dr. Choi," Lyra said, bowing slightly. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." "Of course, Counselor. How can I help you?" Lyra hesitated. "I have been given a rare opportunity. The Council has approved my request to visit Earth itself. I will be one of the first non-humans to see your true civilization." Hana smiled. "Then I should prepare you. What you will see may be surprising." 3 days later, Lyra's shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere. She had seen images and recordings, but nothing had prepared her for the reality. The cities were not like anything she had imagined. They were clean and green, with buildings that seemed to grow from the earth rather than sitting on top of it. Rivers ran through the streets. Trees lined every path. Birds flew between towers that touched the clouds. "We rebuilt everything after the Great Promise," her guide explained. The guide was a young man named Seo Minki, a cultural liaison assigned to help visitors understand human society. The old cities were ugly. They were designed for machines, not people. We made new cities designed for life. Lyra stepped out of the shuttle and breathed Earth air for the first time. It smelled like flowers and rain and something she could not name. Something fresh. "How many people live here?" she asked. "In this city?" "About 12 million. "On Earth total?" "About 15 billion. Lyra's eyes widened. 15 billion? But your planet is smaller than many Council homeworlds. How do you have room?" Minki smiled. "We learn to live with our world instead of against it. We take only what we need. We give back more than we take." It took generations, but we found balance. Over the next week, Lyra was shown wonders that made her question everything she thought she knew about the universe. She saw ships being built in orbital factories, vessels that could cross galaxies in days rather than years. She watched doctors cure diseases that would have killed any council species. She visited schools where children learned physics and poetry with equal passion. But what surprised her most was the people themselves. They were not cold or superior. They laughed and argued and made mistakes. They fell in love and raised families and worried about small things. They were not gods pretending to be ordinary. They were ordinary people who had achieved extraordinary things. On her final day, Lyra met with Ambassador Yoon. He had retired from the council position and now lived in a small house near the ocean. His gray hair had turned white, and his face had more lines, but his eyes were still calm. They sat on his porch, watching waves crash against the shore. "I have a question," Lyra said. "One that has been bothering me since I learned the truth. Ask, why did you stay hidden for so long? You could have helped us so much sooner. You could have saved millions of lives." Yoon was quiet for a long moment. The ocean filled the silence. "I ask myself that question every day," he finally said. "Every life we could have saved haunts me. Every war we could have prevented keeps me awake at night." He turned to face her. "But I also remember what we were. Humans were violent. We were afraid. We were dangerous. We nearly destroyed ourselves, and we would have destroyed others too." His voice grew soft. "We did not hide to protect ourselves. We hid because we remembered what we were capable of. We were not ready to be trusted with the galaxy. And now you are ready?" Yoon smiled sadly. "I do not know. Maybe we will never be ready. But the galaxy needed us, and we could not stand by and watch. That is the burden of power. Eventually, you must choose." Lyra looked out at the ocean. She thought about everything she had seen. The technology, the cities, the people. What happens now? She asked. "Now we grow together, slowly, carefully. We share what we know when you are ready to receive it. We make mistakes and learn from them. We build something new." He stood and offered her his hand. "Come, there is one more thing I want to show you." They walked to a small building at the edge of his property. Inside was a single room with a large window facing the stars. "This is where I come to think," Yoon said. "I watch the ships leave for distant places. I imagine the worlds they will find, the species they will meet." Through the window, Lyra could see dozens of ships rising from Earth, heading out into the darkness. "The galaxy is changing," Yoon continued. "It will not be easy. There will be fear and anger and mistrust. But there will also be hope." The door opened behind them. Kim Soo-bin entered, older now but still sharp. She had become one of the leaders of Earth's diplomatic corps. "Ambassador," she said, "the Council has made their decision. Earth has been offered a permanent seat on the High Council." As equals, Yoon nodded slowly. It was what they had hoped for, what they had waited half a century to achieve. "Will you accept?" Lyra asked. "Yes," Yoon said, "but not as rulers. As partners. That was always the goal." He turned back to the window, watching another ship rise toward the stars. "We spent so long hiding, waiting, protecting from the shadows. Now we can step into the light and work alongside everyone else." He paused. "It is terrifying and wonderful." Soo-bin joined him at the window. "Do you think we made the right choice? Revealing ourselves?" Yoon considered the question. Outside, the stars burned with ancient light. Ships carried humans and aliens to new worlds. The future was uncertain but full of possibility. "We will find out together," he said. "That is the point." Lyra watched the two humans stand together, looking out at the galaxy they had helped save. They had hidden for so long, carrying the weight of their power in silence. Now that weight was shared. The quiet ones had finally spoken, and the galaxy was listening.